Lincoln Regional Airport in Lincoln, California is usually a pretty familiar general aviation soundtrack. Trainers, RVs, Bonanzas, Lycomings, Continentals, and the usual rhythm of a busy local airport. And then one day, this showed up in the hangar next door. An Aero L-39 Albatros, a real military jet trainer. But this story is not just about the airplane, it's about Nate, a general aviation pilot who spent years dreaming about owning a jet, finally bought one, now has to work his way through the training, systems, and FAA process before he can actually fly it himself.
Yeah, my name is Nathan. I've been flying for about 12 to 13 years, about over 1,000 hours of flight. I've owned 10 different aircraft, all from light sport to experimental to regular certified aircraft. Enjoyed them all, they've all been great.
After 10 airplanes, a lot of pilots might be looking for something more comfortable, more efficient, or maybe just a little faster. Nate went in a very different direction. For him, this was not a random purchase. This was a dream that started early, with his father, with Navy aviation, with air shows, and with that unmistakable feeling you get when a jet passes over and you feel it in your chest.
Something about the sound of a jet engine starting, I don't know what it is, it hits me deep inside, and I always believe that I was just supposed to have a jet just because it felt right. So every time I hear a jet start up, it just gives me that warm feeling. It's always been a dream. So my dad flew the F-4 Phantoms when he was in the Navy. I also joined the Navy. I never flew in the Navy. Being around aircraft in the military also sparked some excitement to get in the aviation.
The more Nate talked, the more it became clear that the L-39 is connected to something much deeper than speed or noise. His father was a Navy pilot. Nate grew up around airplanes, and years later, one of the most meaningful airplanes he ever owned was not the jet, it was a Bonanza, like the one he grew up flying in as a kid.
Yeah, so my dad passed away in 2016, and the neat part of this story that I always enjoy is, so I grew up in the back of his Bonanza. It was a V-tail Bonanza, and what was really cool is my second aircraft that I bought that actually got my license in was the V-tail Bonanza. So it was an honor for me to fly up to Shasta where he lived and pick him up in my Bonanza and put him in the co-pilot seat of my Bonanza and fly him around. To me, it was really exciting, to be able to do that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So do you feel like your dad's with you when you're sitting in the jet?
Yeah, it's sad because that would have been really cool to pick him up to fly up there sometime.
Oh, I'm sure it would have been.
Yeah, and him being a Navy guy too, it would have been but yeah, I feel like he's with me. So my call sign is Whacker, and his was Bushwhacker. So my good friend Sticky, who's my flight instructor in the L-39, he named me Whacker, so it's an honor to have that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Before the L-39, Nate's airplane life looked very different. His last airplane was a 1948 Ryan Navion. Not a jet, not especially fast by modern standards, but full of history. And by the way Nate talks about that airplane says a lot about how he sees the airplanes he owns.
That plane was the most sturdiest plane, reliable, and what was great is it's a military aircraft as well. They used to use it in the military. I have a picture of it when on an aircraft carrier, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, so the Navion was a great aircraft. So every time I would work on the aircraft, it was neat to think that someone back in 1948 had a screwdriver in his hand working on the same screw. I don't see myself as the owner of the Navion. I felt like I was the caretaker of history. But yeah, I miss it. It was a really great aircraft, and this is my new adventure now.
Nate had wanted an L-39 for years, but wanting a jet and actually finding the right one are two very different things. These airplanes do come up for sale, but not everyone is the right airplane, and the purchase price is only part of the equation.
So when I used to go to air shows, I'd see a lot of people having their fighter jets that were military, but I never saw any civilians owning them. And there were a few guys that were popping up with the L-39s, and when I saw that and I knew it was obtainable through a civilian, that's when I got really excited. I'm like, wow, I can actually make a dream come true. I've been waiting a long time actually to get the L-39, and the reason why is that there's very limited ones on the market, and also the cost. So it's an expensive aircraft. It's not really the cost of the aircraft, it's what it costs to maintain it and fly it is the true cost. And so I wanted to make sure I was in a position where I could actually afford the aircraft. But I've been waiting for years, looking for years, inquiring for years. Finally, this one popped up and I knew it was right.
Buying the jet was not the finish line. In a lot of ways, it's the starting line. Nate still has to finish the training path, continue learning the airplane, work through the FAA authorization process, and prove he can operate it safely. And that's what makes this story different. This is not a pilot showing off a jet he already flies. This is a pilot working his way into one.
Yeah, there's a lot that has to be done, and it's all obtainable, so it's not like it's, out of reach for anybody, for any pilot. It just takes a lot of work. The first step is to get 1,000 hours of flight under your belt. And after that, it's the instrument rated certificate, and I'm still working through it. It's extremely difficult, very technical, and a lot of memorization, but it really truly makes you the best pilot. There's a program too that this aircraft has to go under for maintenance. And so you have to send in your maintenance approval program, submit that to the FAA. They look it over, make sure you're gonna follow all the rules in the book. And if you do, then that's when they provide you that letter. But you have to definitely stay within the guidelines. I have known the FAA to definitely watch folks that are flying these and watch them closely. So it's something that we definitely have to honor in the L-39 family now to make sure that we don't mess it up for the other jet owners.
One thing you quickly learn is that the L-39 community is small and people with real experience matter. For Nate, one of those key people is Paul Sticky Strickland, the instructor and experienced jet pilot who helped connect him with this airplane and who eventually flew it home for Nate.
Paul Strickland is an amazing pilot. He has a flight school in Utah. So Sticky reached out to me and let me know about the aircraft, and I was pretty excited. It's been a long haul. I think it's been 5 years that we were working together to get this aircraft. It actually had been sitting for 10 years, so there was a lot of questions, ifs, ands, or buts. But when we finally procured the aircraft, Sticky went out, made sure that it was safe, and he transported it here from Utah. So we got a ferry permit from the FAA for that one flight. He flew it out here. I wish I was in the back with him, but he had a second helper with him on that flight.
The more Nate researched this particular L-39, the more interesting the airplane's own story became. While looking for parts and support, he connected with John Morgan at Pride Aircraft and found out John didn't just know about L-39s, he knew this L-39.
But when I started researching for parts, I met a really great guy named John Morgan. He's the owner of Pride Aircraft. This guy knows everything in the world about L-39s. When I sent John a picture of the aircraft, he said, "Oh, I know that aircraft." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, I'm the one that built that when it came into the United States." And I'm like, what are the chances of that, right? The cool thing about Pride is they did a lot of great upgrades. They provided larger tip tanks, which is great because this doesn't go very far on one tank of gas. And they also included another auxiliary tank. So instead of 290 gallons on board, it'll hold almost up to 410, which is really impressive. And that's something that's I find as a huge bonus. They also put an autopilot in. It's not a great autopilot because this was done years ago, but it's a whole lot better than not having anything at all. So it'll wing level, it'll follow the GPS.
So this airplane is not just a random surplus jet. It has a documented path into the US, a Navy paint scheme, some useful upgrades, and now a new owner who sees himself as the next caretaker of its history. For a piston pilot, the L-39 is a different world. It's not just faster, it has different systems, different procedures, different failure modes, and a very different way of thinking about energy and planning. Some of the differences are obvious, others are not.
Still has the original engine. Now the engines were made in Ukraine. They called them disposable because normally after 1,000 hours they just didn't rebuild them because it's so expensive and it's almost cheaper just to buy a new one. I think the engines run about $250,000 to replace. This one has about 400 hours and you can get to 1,000. You can also upgrade these too. So they have the Honeywell engine, which is pretty impressive. These engines are very reliable, extremely reliable and safe. Yeah, the only downside to the aircraft engine is the spool up time. The spool up time on it takes 12 seconds, so it's something that you definitely have to keep in mind. It does have speed brakes on it as well. That's the only thing that would be a little bit nerve-wracking if you have to do a go around and count 12 seconds as you're waiting for the aircraft to go around.
For non-pilot viewers, speed brakes help the jet slow down more quickly, and let me define spool up time, as jet engines don't respond instantly when the pilot moves the throttle like in a propeller-based plane. Spool up time is the delay between advancing the throttle and the engine actually producing usable thrust. Nate says this engine has about a 12-second spool up time. That may not sound like much, but on final approach, with the runway coming up fast, 12 seconds is a long time. If you need to go around, the jet will not accelerate instantly. You have to anticipate the delay, manage your energy, and stay ahead of the airplane.
The Honeywell engine is more economical. It's faster. Spool up time is 3 seconds. It costs a whole lot more money to put in, but it does burn less fuel. I think when this engine's timed out, I may possibly look at the Honeywell motor. And maybe things will change. Maybe they'll have a new motor by then. So about 95% of the L-39s actually disable their ejection seats, and it's for a couple reasons. Number one is safety. Even though they're for safety, they also can be really dangerous. And all it takes is you having a passenger in the back that doesn't understand and grabs the wrong handle. And we don't want that happening. Also too, it's very rare, I'm hoping, that when people are flying these that they don't get shot at by missiles. So that's another reason too for the ejection seats. The cost versus the reward, so that's something I'm going to choose to go ahead and disable. So some of the stuff on the aircraft is great because it has, for high altitude, so it has a pressurized canopy. The great thing too, which I love, is it's air conditioned. None of the aircraft I've had before were air conditioned except you roll the window down. And there's a lot of backup and safety on the aircraft, which I really love. It's definitely, you can tell it's military built. There's backups for backups.
And that brings us to where Nate is right now. He owns the jet, he can start it, he can taxi it, he can learn the cockpit, the sight picture, the brakes, the steering, the systems, and the procedures. But he has not yet flown it himself. So for now, the dream lives on the ground.
So as of today, right now, is I come out and I burn a lot of gas taxiing the aircraft around. It's actually very difficult to taxi. So I've been practicing a lot of that. I'll do a high-speed taxi. I'll get up to about 60 knots and then back off and pull off the runway. But it is a thrill. You can definitely feel it pull you back in your seat. I'm really excited to actually get this up in the air, but I've got to finish up my training first. So my current schedule is to finish up my IFR, get the letter of authorization through the FAA, and then have Sticky come out and start training me. He says that it shouldn't take too long. We're hoping maybe 10 hours of flight before he can approve me, and then I have to go down to Arizona and do a flight with the FAA for them to sign me off to fly the aircraft. And at that point, then I can solo and fly on my own.
What's your timeline?
My timeline, I'm hoping to be up in the air this fall.
Can we do another Silva adventure video then?
Absolutely.
So this is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of one. Most of us will never own a fighter jet, but I think most pilots understand the feeling. Aviation has a way of moving the dream forward. First you want to fly, then you want to fly further, faster, higher, lower, or into something completely different. Nate's version of that dream just happens to have a jet engine. For now, he's still working his way there, one checklist, one taxi run, and one very expensive gallon of fuel at a time. Thanks again for watching this Silva adventure. Make sure you subscribe so that you get notified when I post future Silva adventures. See you soon.